The top stories tonight in Y News. Metro Manila mayors formally recommended to extend the general community quarantine status over the National Capital Region until the end of December. Holiday shoppers still flock to the Divisoria Market in Manila City despite the pandemic threat. The Department of Health clarifies that no payment has been made for AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine after sealing a deal with the company last week.
The Department of Trade and Industry has asked to return the interest earnings of the Philippine International Trading Corporation amounting to more than 1 billion pesos. A Singaporean gives birth to a baby with COVID-19 antibodies. And Wish 107.5 hailed as FM Radio Station of the Year in the 6th Stallion Media Awards.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, November 30, 2020. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and other parts of the world. I am Jorlene Delgado.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, President Rodrigo Duterte is set to announce the new quarantine restrictions for the month of December. Meanwhile, the Metro Manila mayors have agreed to recommend the extension of general community quarantine in the National Capital Region until the end of December. Joan Nano tells us why.
As the current quarantine restriction expires today, President Duterte is expected to announce tonight the new quarantine classification in the country that will be effective for the whole month of December. Prior to this, the local government units were given the chance to appeal for their supposed quarantine classification according to Malacanang. Last night, the Metro Manila Council convened again to come up with a recommendation for the new quarantine classification for Metro Manila that will be implemented until the end of December. According to MMC Chairman and Parañaque City Mayor Edwin Olivares, they have unanimously decided to recommend the extension of GCQ status in NCR. However, they will be prohibiting the conduct of parties or any gatherings to celebrate the holiday season in public offices. The Metro Manila mayors also encourage private companies to do the same thing, as the IATF only limits the gatherings to only 10 participants. The council has also again reminded that caroling in the streets is prohibited.
Lahat po ng ating mayor nag-issue po ng executive order sa bawat local government unit na lahat po ng ating mga public offices hindi po pwedeng mag-Christmas party. At yung pong ating mga private companies, dinidiscourage po natin sila na magkaroon po ng Christmas party dahil po ang maximum na gathering lang sa bawat isa pong gathering ay 10 lang pong katao.
Mayor Olivares also said they are in constant coordination with mall owners and different management of public and private markets to assure that strict implementation of health and safety protocols are being enforced, as many people are expected to flock the markets this holiday season. Some of them have established a city and barangay task force to enforce the physical distancing, wearing of face mask and face shield.
Nagkakaroon po tayo ng coordination doon po sa ating mga mall owners, doon po sa ating mga administrator ng ating po mga private market, lalo-lalo na po yung po mga public market na under po ng bawat isang city government. Meron po tayong city task force, aside sa ating mga barangay task force po, to see to it na yung po nga pagsusuot ng face shield, pagsusuot po ng ating face mask, yung physical distancing ay umiiral po sa lahat po ng ating public places.
Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Health Department echoes the observation of the University of the Philippines Octa Research Group that COVID-19 cases in the country slightly increased this past 2 weeks. But according to Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, the country still doesn't need to be placed again under Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ for the holiday season. Aiko Miguel reports to us why live. Yes, Aiko?
Yes, Harleen, good evening. The Health Department has once again recorded more than 2,000 COVID-19 cases in the country after almost 3 weeks. Based on UP Octa Research Group report, COVID-19 cases slightly increased in National Capital Region, Davao, and Western Visayas. The Department of Health agrees with UP Octa's report, but also said the country does not to be placed under Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ again. Here is Secretary Francisco Duque III.
Well, hindi naman kinakailangan o nangangahulugan kailangan mag-MECQ. Lalo na sa atin na darating na holiday seasons, no? Ngunit tama yung sinabi ng Octa na talagang meron ng sa ngayon bahagyang tumataas ng mga kaso dito sa NCR.
Secretary Duque explains, Harleen, the slight uptick of COVID-19 cases may be due to the crowding of evacuees due to the onslaught of previous typhoons in the country, also with the mobility of people while the country is on GCQ.
Yung pagtaas ay pwedeng ma-attribute natin yan o ang kadahilanan yan ay unang-una nagdaan itong Typhoon Chinta, nag-umpisa na tayo, Typhoon Wally, Typhoon Ulysses, no? So yung sa mga evacuation centers natin ay posibleng naging dahilan din yan sa kaunting pagtaas ng kaso at syempre itong pagsalubong ng Kapaskuhan at nasa GCQ tayo, yung mga tao ay muling lumaki ang bilang ng lumalabas at nakikihalubilo.
Meanwhile, Harleen, according to Secretary Duque, it is also not possible to ease the quarantine restrictions in the country. The health chief explains, once that happens, surely there will be a surge in COVID-19 cases and the country's health system will again suffer.
Kung de-escalate o ibababa natin yung current community quarantine status from GCQ to NGCQ, ay ibig sabihin nagluluwag tayo ng mga restrictions pa, no? Nagluwag na nga tayo either sa transport o sa mga taong makikihalubilo, magsha-shopping, papasyal, pupunta kung saan-saan. Kapag gano'n nangyari, tataas ang contact rate. Pagka tumaas ang contact rate sa gitna ng mga mamamayan, tataas din ang transmission rate mo.
Harleen, the DOH reminds the public that though the government may keep quarantine restrictions to GCQ this holiday season, people should still be vigilant and be more responsible in observing minimum health standards. And that is the latest live. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you so much. Aiko Miguel reporting live. The holiday rush is on as market goers continue to flock to the Divisoria market in Manila despite the threat of a pandemic. Authorities, on the other hand, encounter challenges in implementing health and safety protocols in one of the most busiest marketplaces in the country. Asher Cadapan Jr. explains why.
An increasing number of market goers were noticed in Divisoria towards the end of November. And as the month of December kicks off tomorrow, more and more shoppers are expected to go to Divisoria. But to the vendors, they still endure low revenue compared to last year's profit.
Marami lang pong tao pero wala pong gano'ng namimili. Kasi yung iba po namamasya lang yata eh.
Hindi na namin po inasa na maraming mamimili ngayon kasi nga po wala po pera ang mga tao. Siyempre, unahin nila yung mga pagkain.
Although there are still just a few customers in Divisoria, the marketplace in Elias Street is already crowded with people. This is where Manila City Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso placed the market stalls for vendors stand. The few meters of space in between for people to walk through is not enough for the influx of pedestrians who brave the crowd despite the threat of COVID-19 transmission.
Natatakot of course kuya, pero naka-face shield naman kami, naka-face mask po. Tapos yun nga po, wala ng proper distancing po. Yun lang kasi kailangan tagal naming mamili po. Tapos kasi bukas may pasok na din kami.
Due to the influx of market goers, policemen and barangay personnel acting as marshals in the marketplace find difficulty in controlling the crowd to adhere to the health and safety protocols.
Lagi naman po namin sila pinapaalala po na magsuot ng face mask, face shield, at social distancing po. Yun nga po, hindi namin sila mapigilan.
Authorities continue to appeal to the public to follow the minimum health standards, particularly the 1-meter social distancing for the safety of everyone. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Carlito Galvez Jr. admits that authorities are also having a hard time to enforce physical distancing measures in public events at times. Rosa Licos explains why.
The Interagency Task Force Against COVID-19 will discuss the supposed health protocol violation of presidential spokesperson Harry Roque after delivering a speech before a crowd which allegedly did not observe physical distancing in Bantayan Island, Cebu. National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine SAR Carlito Galvez refused to comment about the issue and said they could tackle it on a meeting with President Duterte. The official admitted there are times when physical distancing is hard to enforce during public events. Galvez pointed that the public is always advised, as well as the local government units, to maintain the appropriate safe distancing. Galvez gave as examples the situation in evacuation areas and in some programs where people are difficult to be controlled. Nevertheless, he reiterated that everyone should be cautious and follow minimum health standards to prevent coronavirus transmission. Aside from Secretary Roque, Senator Manny Pacquiao was also questioned when he conducted relief operations to typhoon-affected residents who allegedly did not observe physical distancing. According to Interior Secretary Eduardo Año, the government will conduct a fact-finding investigation on these crowd-drawing events and determine if they will be held liable. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The number of new daily COVID-19 cases in the Philippines has again lowered to below 2,000 in the Department of Health's or DOH latest update on Monday. As of 4 p.m. today, 1,773 new coronavirus infections were recorded by the government, bringing the total number of COVID-19 cases in the country to 431,630. The province of Rizal had the most number of new cases to date with 105, followed by Cavite province with 99, Negros Occidental with 88, Davao City with 79, and Laguna with 72. Of the total number of cases, 24,580 or 5.7% remain active cases, majority of these being mild infections. The DOH also reported 45 new recoveries, bringing the total number of COVID-19 survivors to 398,658 or 92.4%. COVID-19 deaths, meanwhile, rose to 8,392, with 19 more patients reported to have succumbed to the disease. On Sunday, the DOH reported 2,076 new cases of COVID-19, a jump from the 1,893 cases recorded on Saturday. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said the slight increase in the number of COVID-19 cases was due to recent typhoons that hit Luzon, which displaced hundreds and thousands of families. He also expected an increase in COVID-19 cases due to the upcoming holiday season when shopping and social gatherings are prevalent. The government expects more physical gatherings of families during the holiday season, but health experts remind of the do's and don'ts to protect families against the unseen virus. Joanna will tell us why live.
Yes, Will, as the Department of Health expect the conduct of parties and gatherings in celebration of the holiday season despite of the people because of the threat of COVID-19 transmission, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III urges the public to limit the number of participants if they wish to conduct family reunions this holiday season. The Secretary also pointed out that parties should be held in a well-ventilated areas and avoid crowded places, so it is better for people to celebrate in their houses. Let us hear the statement of Health Secretary Francisco Duque III.
Huwag na mag-imbita ng mga iba pang mga kamag-anak na galing kung saan-saan at hindi tayo nakakasiguro ay kung sila ba ay free or ligtas sa COVID, kung hindi, baka makahawa. Pangalawa, yung pwede, yung ating po mga OFWs na kababayan ay mag-tele meeting na lang. Ano po, maganda naman po ang teknolohiya, may Zoom, may Webex at may ZMix call kung iba-ibang plataforma at yung pong pagsisimba dapat online na rin po. Huwag na pong pumunta sa mga lugar na kung saan madaming dumadalong mga mamamayan para magsimba dahil tumataas po ang risk of contracting COVID.
In relation to this, will medical doctors from the Healthcare Alliance Professionals Against COVID-19 reminded the public to strictly comply with the health and safety protocols if it's really inevitable to hold gatherings and family reunion this holiday season. The medical experts advises the public to hold their parties in an open-air spaces, always observe and practice physical distancing, properly wear your face mask and face shield, and limit interaction with other people.
Dapat, kung meron tayong kausap o kasama, the shorter the time, the better, no? 30 minutes or less, or kung hihigit man, keep it to a minimum, no? The shorter the encounter, ang recommendation ng WHO and CDC, keep it to 15 minutes.
The doctors reiterates that they are discouraging the conduct of any physical gatherings as the threat of COVID-19 is still present while vaccine to combat the deadly virus is still unavailable. And that is the latest live. Back to you, Will.
The government and a private sector inked a tripartite COVID-19 vaccine supply agreement with UK-based pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca last Friday. This is to ensure the country's supply of vaccines next year. But Health Secretary Francisco Duque III clarifies no payment has been made during the vaccine deal. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine will still need the approval from the Philippine Food and Drug Administration before it can be used for the country's vaccination, according to the Department of Health. Until it is approved by the country's regulatory process, the government will not pay the 2.6 million doses of vaccines.
Agreement pa lang yan. Nakapaloob naman sa agreement na kailangan dumaan po sa mahigpit na pagsusuri, yung stringent evaluation, analysis, ang anuman bakuna ang papasok at pahihintulutan ng ating vaccines expert panel at ng FDA. At sumang-ayon naman ang AstraZeneca na in fact magsasagawa nga sila ng clinical trial phase 3 sa Pilipinas. So wag po kayo mag-aalala dahil yan po ay agreement pala. At nakapaloob po naman sa agreement na yan na talagang susunod po sila sa lahat po ng ating pamantayan.
According to Secretary Duque, the tripartite vaccine deal can still be void if the pharmaceutical company cannot secure an approval from the FDA. The country's vaccine expert panel and the FDA will also base their approval on the results of the clinical trials of AstraZeneca in other countries.
Posible yan, syempre, dahil ibig sabihin may violation ng agreement. So, dapat basahin po ninyo yung provisions ng MOA at doon po malinaw ang nakasaad, ano ba ang mandato ng bawat panig doon sa lumagda sa kasunduan. So meron tayong mga obligasyon under the agreement, ang national government, ang private sector, at ang vaccine manufacturing companies.
Based on the DOH's update, the best case scenario of a COVID-19 vaccine availability will be on the second quarter of 2021. This is for the immunization of prioritized 20 to 25 million Filipinos next year. The government's COVID-19 immunization plan will also include millions of Filipinos to be vaccinated each year to prevent COVID-19 transmission.
By 2021, ang ating po pinupuntirya ay makapagbakuna tayo ng mga 20 to 25 million na katao based on our prioritization list. Ano po? At sa susunod na taon ay 2022 ay baka makapagbakuna na tayo ng another 25. So 50 na yan. By 2023, pwede makapagbakuna ulit ng mga 20 million. So mga 60 to 70 million thereabouts, no, ay pwede na po natin makamit ang herd immunity na tinatawag.
The DOH also clarifies the availability of COVID-19 vaccine will also depend on the global supply and demand of each country needing COVID-19 vaccines. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
In other news, activists staged a protest at UP Diliman in Quezon City today during the 157th birth anniversary of Andres Bonifacio. Dante Amento tells us why live. Yes, Dante, good evening.
Yes, Will, good evening. Various groups such as the Kilusang Mayoono, Anak Bayan, and Workers Alliance grabbed the holiday to hold demonstration at the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City this morning. They asked the government to provide enough or standard salary for the workers, stop violations of human rights, including freedom of speech and assembly. Max Belli had worked in a company in Bulacan for 5 years, but he was laid off at the start of the pandemic without a valid reason.
Pinaglalaban namin ang aming karapatan bilang isang manggagawa dahil sa nangyari sa amin sa high grade. Dahil sa pagtatsik sa amin sa trabaho.
The protesters also wanted to waive the 19 billion peso budget of the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict or NTF LCAC for the education sector and expenses for campaign against COVID-19. The Anak Bayan has stressed to have an academic break because of the current situation wherein even parents suffer in assisting their children. They condemn the administration for allegedly failure to provide the needs of those who are infected with COVID-19, slow and insufficient assistance with those victims of the recent typhoons, and they slammed the government for the issue of red tagging of some personalities.
Panawagan dito ay anti-fascist at pakontra din po sa red tagging at bitbit din po yung mga demands ng mga workers at ng mga mapang sektor ng Pilipinas.
Thus, they want to junk the anti-terrorism law which is allegedly being used to prosecute those critical with the administration. The issues of red tagging and the lack of attention given by the government to its people push the young children to go to the mountains and join the rebel groups.
Realidad po kasi ng lipunan talaga natin na may mga pumipiling mag-armas at mag-NPA. It's heartbreaking to see na may mamatay na kabataan dahil dito. Pero at the same time, ang dinidiin po ng Anak Bayan, we need to look at the social conditions that push students, that push the youth to take arms.
William, the groups have promised to continuously criticize the government until their pleas will be granted. And that's the latest live. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Dante Amento, reporting live. President Rodrigo Duterte today called on Filipinos to emulate the courage, determination, and patriotism of revolutionary hero Andres Bonifacio in facing challenges such as the novel coronavirus disease pandemic that the world is facing. In a taped message aired during laying ceremony at the Bonifacio Monument in Caloocan City to mark the 157th birth anniversary of the Filipino hero, Duterte noted Bonifacio's legacy of sparking a fire of revolution that awakened our national consciousness and served as the foundation of the Philippine Republic. Duterte also discouraged Filipinos to draw inspiration from Bonifacio to overcome challenges and secure a much brighter future for the country. Duterte did not attend the Bonifacio Day commemoration rites held in Caloocan City on Monday. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana led the flag-raising and wreath-laying ceremonies at the Bonifacio Monument. Simultaneous ceremonies were also held in other historic sites in the country in honor of the Filipino hero.
Today, we honor Bonifacio's legacy of sparking the fires of a revolution that awakened our national consciousness and served as the foundation of this republic. His love of country, which aroused our ancestors to fight for our freedom and secure our rightful place in the community of nations, is very vital. Now, more than ever, as we overcome the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic, as we remember his life and deeds, may the values he fought for inspire us all to become warriors of the just, progressive, and inclusive society that he envisioned more than a century ago. Fueled by Bonifacio's extraordinary courage and determination, let us surmount the many challenges ahead and secure a much better and brighter future for every Filipino.
The Finance Department has formally asked the Department of Trade and Industry to return to the National Treasury the interest earnings of the Philippine International Trading Corporation, or PITC, worth 1.1 billion pesos. This comes as the PITC faces allegations of parked funds, which the state-run trading firm earlier denied. In a statement, Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez said he sent a letter to Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez, who also sits as the chairman of the PITC's board, to ask for the return of the amount to help in the government's COVID-19 response and disaster relief efforts. According to Dominguez, the 1.1 billion pesos that was earned from the funds that the PITC has been holding as of 2019 was recorded as interest income. However, these should have been remitted to the National Treasury. The interest earnings were earned from the cash and investment balances transferred by national government agencies to the PITC for the procurement of various equipment and other requirements. The fund balances in the PITC was at 33.3 billion pesos as of 2019 and 32.6 billion pesos as of October of this year. Dominguez also cited the 2019 report of the Commission on Audit, noting that the said practice of the corporation is not in accordance with the Government Auditing Code of the Philippines. Earlier, the DOF also sent a letter to Budget Secretary Wendell Avisado seeking the return of the 33 billion peso alleged parked funds with the PITC to the National Treasury. The DTI has yet to comment on the matter. Meanwhile, for Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon, the PITC should be abolished. In a radio interview, Drilon said the PITC is only a duplication of the procurement service of the Department of Budget and Management and the Bids and Awards Committee of each government agency. The Philippine National Police PNP Chief Police General Debold Sinas on Monday said there is no final decision yet on the Internal Affairs Service recommendation to have the policemen involved in the Holosulu shooting incident be separated from the service. Leia Inagan will tell us why, exclusive.
Police General Debold Sinas is yet to receive the recommendation of the Philippine National Police Internal Affairs Service or PNP-IAS on the case of the 9 policemen involved in the controversial shooting incident with members of the military in Holosulu. The PNP chief said he will immediately ask the PNP Legal Service to review the said recommendation before he issues a final decision on the matter.
Actually, wala pa. Hinintay ko yun. Baka on transient na yun. Kasi dadaan mo na yun sa SDS natin, TCDS, papakyat ng ladder. Kasi para makapag-comment din sila.
The most cases, the decision of the Chief PNP goes along with the recommendation of the PNP-IAS, especially if evidence against the involved cops is strong. Sinas said the involved cops may still appeal whatever his decision may be in the case.
Sometimes natutuloy, pero bihira na lang nababago. So sa case na to, ayaw ko muna mag-comment. Kasi itong first major decision ko sa liga mga admin cases as Chief PNP.
Last Friday, Attorney Alfigar Triambolo of the PNP-IAS told UNTV that their recommendation against the 9 cops would be dismissal from the service for being guilty of grave misconduct. Meanwhile, a 50-day suspension for less grave neglect of duty is recommended against the 3 cops who were manning the checkpoint in the area where the military intelligence personnel were flagged down. As for former Holo Chief of Police Lieutenant Colonel Walter Anayo and Police Captain Ariel Corsino, they may face 40-day suspension due to command responsibility and less grave neglect of duty. For its part, the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP is pleased of the development in the case that involved their intelligence officer. AFP spokesperson Major General Edgar Arevalo says the AFP is hoping for a criminal case to be filed against the accused. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
There has been a surge of leptospirosis cases admitted in the National Kidney and Transplant Institute or NKTI in Quezon City. Health experts warn the numbers may continue to rise. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
The number of leptospirosis patients admitted at the National Kidney and Transplant Institute or NKTI in Quezon City has climbed to 78 since the November 12 onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses. Leptospirosis is a disease traced to rat urine that finds its way through waterways and eventually end up contaminating floodwaters. The disease's incubation period when symptoms could appear is 10 days to 3 weeks after wading in floodwaters. According to NKTI Executive Director Rosemary Rosete Liquete, the disease usually attacks the kidney and lungs.
Pag kidney ang tinamaan, kukonti ang iye o talagang totally na siya shutdown ng kidney. Kung lungs naman, nagkakaroon tayo ng hemorrhage. Kung nahihirapan huminga,
The health authority added, compared to 300 cases last year, they have only recorded 152 cases this year due to the COVID-19 restrictions. But she blamed the garbage in Metro Manila as the possible source of the disease.
alam mo naman dito sa NCR, talagang maraming basura nagkalat, maraming daga. So ito ang nakuha natin.
The Department of Health has advised those who waded in floodwaters to take prophylaxis within 24 to 28 hours to prevent infection. Meanwhile, the NKTI is also preparing its gym to accommodate more leptospirosis patients. It has a capacity of 35 to 40 patients. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The country has faced some of the strongest typhoons in history this year. According to the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAG-ASA, this can also be associated with the prevailing episode of La Niña phenomenon, a weather condition where above normal rains are experienced in the country. The onset of La Niña in the country started since mid of this year, but the state weather agency announced deficit, it is likely to extend until next year. If this happens, Pag-asa said the country will likely experience a back-to-back La Nina where the phenomenon prevails for 2 consecutive years. Based on Pag-asa's data, 6 episodes of back-to-back La Nina have been recorded in the country since 2017. The worst one was in 2010 to 2011.
And for those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.